Thank you for joining me today. This is the LarryandFishers.com podcast. I have with me Janet Chandler, who was the outgoing president of the Hamilton Southeastern Education Association, and Abby Taylor, who was the incoming president. So, ladies, thank you so much for joining me today.
Welcome.
I would like to start off with this. And Janet, one question I need to have the answer for from you. How many years have you been president of the association?
Over 30.
Oh, my goodness.
And I was vice president for 3 years, and I've had gaps in service, but yeah.
All right. With that in mind, 33 years with gaps in service, just give us a few pieces of information or your thoughts about the highs and lows you've experienced during those years.
Well, like one of the things I've been proud of for a long time was our gender equity extracurricular salary schedule. When I first came, boys basketball coaches were paid differently than girls basketball coaches were. And in 1984, that changed. And so that's something that I'll always be proud of. I'm proud of the advances we've made in salary over the years. We used to be one of the poorest paid districts, and we're not the best paid, but we're certainly not at the bottom of the heap anymore. I'm proud of that. I'm proud that we've been able to, take part in a lot of different activities that have elevated the profession over the years. I think our political participation, I'm proud of that. I realize everyone doesn't agree with that, but I think that we have been more helpful than harmful.
So, Abby, let me throw this question at you just a little bit differently. What do you see as you come into office as the most immediate challenges you'll be facing?
I think a little bit of the political side of things. Our jobs are political in nature. And so just being able to navigate that with the community and the district together so that we can create a fair and equal opportunity for all teachers and students alike in the whole entire district. I think that will be one of the biggest challenges we have facing us in this coming year. I would say that would be the main thing coming up.
Yeah, I can certainly see that. And you're both different teachers. You're a high school teacher and a chair of a department. Janet, Abby, you are a fourth grade teacher. I know that sometimes Janet spends as much as half of her time with association business. As a fourth grade teacher, will you be able to do that?
Yeah, so we have in our contract halftime release. And so I'll have the same time of the day or part of the day, halftime, to be able to do the association business when needed during that time. And it's a flexible thing. We have to figure out when we can do it, either in the morning or the afternoon. So it may not be as flexible as Janet's schedule is in the high school, but we at Lantern Road, I can tell you my principal has been really great in working with me and figuring out what would work best morning or afternoons. And if we needed to switch, she has in line ways that could happen. So the association business will still get done.
So Janet, you must be the queen of time management, because you not only are a chair of a department, you you teach at Hamilton Southeastern High School, and you also have these other programs that you take care of that are hours outside the usual classroom, such as We the People and also the courtroom, the mock court, I think is what you call it. So tell me how you have you been able to manage your time all these years?
Well, it's probably helpful that I live by myself. I don't have much of a family, left, and so. But I still do fun things outside of school. I'm not just a school girl, but I am very organized. Though if you look at my desk right now, it might not seem that way, but I know where everything is on it. So I think organization and keeping a good calendar is helpful. This past year, having so many meetings on Zoom has made it a lot easier. Not that everyone is excited about a meeting on Zoom, but you can certainly get a lot more packed into your day if you're Zooming.
And the three of us are on Zoom today because we're all three in different locations. That seemed to make this all easier for all of us. Janet, let me stay with you for a moment because I know many teachers myself, and everyone tells me this has been the most challenging year to teach students ever, no matter how long they've been in education. The COVID-19 pandemic caused so many disruptions, and I won't get into all the details of that now, but what are your teachers telling you about? And I ask this question because I think a lot of people in the community really don't understand why this has been a very stressful school year for teachers. Explain why.
It's the synchronous teaching, what has made it stressful for most teachers. We're so dependent upon that technology. And on days when, as my projector did yesterday, snap, crackle, and pop, um, and my whole screen went dark. And, I mean, it's just, it can be frustrating at times that we're dependent upon something we really can't see, that wireless connection or Wi-Fi, things of that nature. And I think that's what's made it stressful. And especially at the beginning, I think a bit of the unknown, uh, because teachers by nature, we don't really care for the unknown. We like to direct the traffic of the unknown. And so when the traffic's directed for us or, seemingly outside of our control, then that's stressful for people.
So, Abby, let me ask you the same question with in mind the fact that you are an elementary teacher, which may have its own challenges, but you obviously talk to teachers as you've been the vice president of the association during this time. What are teachers telling you about why it's so stressful this year?
Definitely, to reiterate what Janice said, the synchronous learning is really what they struggle with and being tethered to this computer. So like teachers are movers and shakers, right? We get up, we get around the room, we're helping children however we can, especially in elementary. And a lot of times in high school, everything is hands-on. And so to get hands-on to a virtual student has made it very interesting of trying to shift and change in the moment because we think one thing might work and then it doesn't and we have to shift it. And so I think it's just the unknown of what could happen with the technology. Also not being able to do what we know to be the best practices sometimes with virtual students and in-person students at the same time because we have to be with both and do the best for both. And that's really hard.
So you've got that computer in the middle of the room that basically symbolizes one or more students, plus you got the students in the room. That must be an extra stressor.
Yeah. Well, my kids have gotten very good at just saying, I'm going to join Zoom. I'm the person today. I'll join with my virtual student. And they have been absolutely amazing throughout this whole entire thing. We have always said students will change and adapt and persevere through it faster than adults. And they really have, grown in ways that we may not have ever seen them grow before. But yes, it's been different, but they are different now because of this experience. Better.
Let me stay with you, Abby, for this question. There are changes coming to the bus system. There's going to be changes of student reporting time. The elementary students and the high school students are going to switch. The high school students will be going later. The elementary will be switching to earlier. So there's some big changes in the student reporting times, class starting times, school starting times, and there's some calendar changes. What are teachers telling you about these changes? How do they feel about this?
I think it just goes back to the unknown. They don't know. So they're worried about what it will mean in the elementary to get up that early and leave earlier in the day. And the high school's worried because they're going to come later and leave later in the day. And when will PLC happen? And when will staff meetings happen? And so it's after a year of lots of unknowns, they're just on high alert of, what is going to happen with this new change. And I think, like we've told them all year, let it happen, see what happens, be the positive person in the situation. And then if things don't work out, we can have conversations around that.
So Janet, it's interesting that what really the motivator behind this has been in the works for years is that there is some academic data out there that shows that high school students need more sleep. Do you think you'll see any change in the way your classes go with the results of this change in the reporting times?
Well, as a teacher who doesn't need a lot of sleep, I and who's always gotten to work at 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm not sure how I'm going to adjust. It will be interesting. I mean, we have noticed, like when we've had 2-hour delays before. Um, of course, that's usually been a weather-related reason. Uh, it's the kids are wide awake, whereas sometimes in the morning they're just not right now. Um, and so I think it will be interesting to see whether we solidify that research or not. There isn't really any research about the younger kids, and so our junior high and intermediate kids are going to be getting out at 4 o'clock. So they drew the latest straw, and the research, like just it's anecdotal, like elementary teachers report that the kids get up with their parents, and so they've been up a long time when they get to school in the morning now. And so it'll be interesting to see how it works for them.
All right, let me stay with you, Janet, because you've negotiated a number of contracts locally between the school district and the association. The General Assembly has now enacted a 2-year state budget that, to a large extent, dictates the amount of money HSE schools will have over the next 2 years. There's also, of course, a referendum that was passed several years ago, which may come up again in a couple of years. But let's stick with what you're doing now. With the information you have about what the legislature has done, I know you can't get into specifics, but in general terms, what do you expect as you go into negotiations late in the summer over a new contract?
Well, by law, we can't officially start bargaining until September 15th. So we usually do get together in the summertime to kind of start laying some ideas out in a process that we call pre-bargaining. And we have done that ever since the law changed to limit us to September the 15th. Because as teachers, it's really hard for us to teach all day and then bargain, at night. And administrators also, they want to leave work at a decent time. And, because of we have multi-level people on our bargaining team, we can't get started until probably after 4, once the school day starts. And so we try to knock out as much preliminary work as we can in the summertime. I have high hopes. I always do, for a good contract. We'll cross our fingers and hopefully that will happen.
And Abby, you made it clear to me that Janet will be on your negotiating team, even though she won't be leading it this time as the president. But there is a different dynamic with this bargaining because you're a no association president. Cecily Nunn is the chief financial officer, where Mike Reuter had been for many years. And there'll be a new superintendent, Yvonne Stokes. With all these new players, are you still confident that you can reach an agreement fairly quickly?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we have a really good working relationship with district administration, and I feel confident in the fact that Cecily, when she leaves, is going to give the information on to whoever her predecessor is, and it's going to be good. And I also have confidence in Dr. Stokes and her ability to lead us in our district these coming years. And honestly, I just think, we have to work well together. So there really isn't an option of, not coming together and figuring out the bumps along the way that will obviously happen in bargaining, but we will get through that.
Speaking of Dr. Stokes, Abby, have you met with Dr. Stokes yet?
Yes, I have. So I've met her at the board meeting that she had when she was voted in. And I also worked briefly with her when I was working in IPS. She was an assistant superintendent. We had a few discussion meetings together. We don't like know each other super well, but we have a working, knowledge of each other a little bit just from our time in IPS.
Abby, let me stick with you here on this question. I'll ask Janet to weigh in as well. The student and parent response to the virtual learning option for the coming school year much lower than expected. I think it's like 180, which is a tiny percentage of the entire student body for HSE schools. Of course, the Indiana Online was going to do the high school students as a contractor. Lower grades would have been volunteers from your association. Dr. Borf told me the day that the final numbers came out, there happened to be a school board work session that day, and I asked him, where did you go from here? And he basically said, we're going to have to study this because the numbers are so low. So Abby, do you think you're going to have, number one, do you think there's going to be a virtual learning option with that low number? And if so, I assume you have more teachers willing to teach it than you'll have students wanting to go into it.
Yeah. I think that we will have the virtual option because we've offered it. And I think that we have people who are needing that option for their education. What that will look like is yet to be really known. As you know, like elementary will be maybe a little different than what was thought. Maybe they'll have to be multi-age classes. And that's not something that teachers aren't able to do. We do that all the time with differentiation in the classroom to meet wherever our kids are, wherever they need to be met is what we do. So, and what we do well. So I think, next year with virtual learners, I think they will not probably go away. And I think we'll be able to figure it out as we go.
So Janet, were you surprised at the low number of families wanting to be part of the virtual learning option?
But, you think about it, on the one hand, we were surprised because we had so many conversations and discussion about like what this would look like, and, that like it might, like a teacher, an elementary teacher might have to teach kids from more than one building. Well, that's going to be a definite now that will take place. And I think it maybe speaks to the nature of society right now, whereas people want to just get back to the way it used to be. And so I think that you see that, in kids and families, wanting to come back to in-person learning because that's what they're most familiar with. And, this has been a challenging year for them as well.
So Janet, just the feedback that you've received so far, have teachers been receptive to receiving the vaccine? I know there have been pockets of society who have been a little bit cautious about it. Are teachers generally open to getting the vaccination and receiving it?
Well, I started sending out emails um, when the vaccine, like when it was talk about that it was going to be available. And then I think I sent out 13 or 14 different vaccination emails altogether, like with information as to where it was. And, and then when finally Governor Holcomb, said teachers can get it. So I learned about that national pharmacy program from the federal government, which I had not heard of before. And so I learned lots of new things. And I learned that teachers were desperate to get that vaccine because we flooded the Kroger and Meyer websites trying to get it there. And, then they would email back like, I can't get in. And just so I encouraged them to try late at night, early in the morning, because it had been reported to me that success had been achieved that way. And so, and the district was very supportive of trying to get teachers vaccinated. I will tell you that I have been contacted by teachers who don't want to be vaccinated. And so those teachers do exist in our system. There's less of them than the ones who want to be vaccinated, but they do exist.
What's been your experience, Abby? Have you received the same feedback or anything different in your discussions with people who are teaching in the HSE system?
Yeah, I mean, Janet's right. People who wanted it have now gotten it, and they're feeling very confident about, coming to school and it being safer. And, it's just there's a different feeling about the buildings since the vaccination was available to teachers.
Let me stay with you, Abby, but there's been there's been a discussion, I will call it almost a controversy here. And it's been national and has come down locally as well. The role of diversity and inclusion in education, um, as far as people challenging the curriculum as it deals with race relations in all school systems and HSE included. Uh, Abby, does the association have any particular views on this issue?
I think that our position is it's important to teach, inclusion in the classroom and in the school buildings. And we have curriculum in both levels or in all levels that we follow to make sure that we are following, what the district has put out for us to teach in those classes. So I think we're supportive of social emotional learning and diversity for sure.
Janet, would you like to weigh in on that?
Well, I think, as a society, we've changed, maybe when I first came to Southeastern, we weren't having these conversations, because Southeastern was a different place then. So our school system has definitely become more diverse. And I think that there is definitely, um, as a teacher, you want to make sure that every student in your room feels welcome and every student can find a place in your room. And so when I came to Southeastern, our student population um, was mainly white. And our student population today is still mainly white. But at the time I came to Southeastern High School, there were 2 African American students in the building. We have our percentages are much higher now. And then also we have added, a lot of Latino students and a lot of Asian students, people of different religions that were not here at the time, that I came to Southeastern. And so I think as teachers, we are obligated to make sure those kids see their faces and see their place in what's being taught.
Yeah, also 2 observations on my part. I moved here in 1991, and it was one kind of place here in Fishers on the HSE schools. By the time my twin daughters entered school in the late 90s, it was a very different place. And I think probably they had a richer education for that. Second, well, let me move on to something else here because I want to talk about budgets again in a different way. The school board were told by the administrators recently in a school board meeting that this $5 million budget shortfall was caused by a lower student enrollment, which all school systems were seeing to some extent throughout the state, and some loss of revenue that's also related to the pandemic, interest rates, that sort of thing. The $5 million budget shortfall, there was a concern early on that would require some kind of reduction in force, but due to retirements, people leaving for various reasons, and some state and some federal support, it appears that will not be required. So, Abby, does that give you a sigh of relief as an association president coming in?
Yes, a lot. I mean, I think it helps with class sizes. It helps with student achievement. When we can have the appropriate staffing in place, that's always a really beneficial thing for everybody involved. But yes, it is an extreme sigh of relief that we have figured this out through.
So, Janet, was there concern amongst the staff members that there might need to be a reduction in force when it was clear this budget deficit was evolving?
It was mentioned at a school board meeting, kind of at the end of the meeting, just in passing. And there are a lot of teachers that are watching the school board meetings now as must-see TV. Uh, if Netflix isn't working, then this is what you've got on Wednesday nights. And so they heard that, and I kept getting questions the day after the school board meeting. So I sent out a clarification email because we had been working on RIF language. And so then, we continued to inform the teachers about, what was going on. And it took us a while to get to the RIF language that we have now, because the language that we did previously have was not compliant with changes that existed. And so we had to get it updated before, obviously, a RIF could happen. But we're both very thankful. We're all very thankful that a RIF is not happening.
Having been both a manager and a union official at the federal level, I can tell you I was surprised that the RIF procedures that are in the federal government are very, very, very similar to the ones you might have, although they always have to be tweaked. And you made a comment about how a tiny difference in an evaluation could make a difference. Fortunately, that did not come to pass. You never had to worry about that. Jenna, let me stay with you for a moment. Hear from each of you on this, because your association is involved in a number of things within the community and elsewhere within the teaching community, but the general community. Tell me what the association is doing in the community that maybe residents are not aware of.
Well, in a couple of years ago, I've been wanting us to participate in Spark Fishers or, the Freedom Festival, whatever it was. And it never seemed to work out because of a conflict with our national meeting. And so then, like with the calendar shift a couple of years ago in 2019, we did participate. We had a booth, and we partnered with Barnes and Noble, and we gave away gift cards. We gave away books. And, we're able to connect. Both Abby and I worked shifts at Spark Fishers, and we are so excited to be able to do that again this year, and just, to be able to connect with the community in a different way.
Anything come to mind for you, Abby, in that regard?
I think one thing that we do that's really amazing is anytime that there's a board race, we have a forum, and we invite all of the candidates to come and talk about their opinions about things. And it's really an amazing thing, because I was in IPS 10 years, and we didn't do that in IEA. And so when I came to HSEA, I was like, oh, this is great. Like, this is what the community wants to know, these things. And it's not always easy to, get all the people together in the right spots, but we're able to do that. And we provide a video, and we put it on our website for people to view that may not be a part of our organization, but can view these answers from all the candidates. And I think it's a civic duty that we do vote in school board things. And it's a civic duty for us to, provide information to our community.
Abby, I have a final question for each of you. Abby, I'll start with you. I try to ask questions that are relevant. I'm sure I didn't ask everything. Is there anything that you would like to add before we wrap this up?
I think I just want to add, Janet is a tough act to follow, but she's been doing it for so long. But I am really excited to take this role on and give it my all to everything that HSEA is and is to become in the future.
Janet, your chance on that question.
I'm also excited that Abby is taking this role on. And, because when there's a period of time, when I was in getting further schooling, that I stepped back from the presidency. And since that time, I was so focused on the schooling and then my classes I was teaching, I haven't had a break, and so it'll be interesting to see how this works. And people have said to me, what are you going to do with your free time? And my experience has always been, anytime I've given something up, that something else comes along to fill it. And so I'm excited for the next chapter as well, and excited to support Abby as she furthers the association.
My thanks to Janet Chandler, the 30-plus year officer with the Hamilton Southeastern Education Association. She's exiting stage left. Stage right is Abby Taylor. She's the incoming president of the association. So I would like to thank both of you for being here. Appreciate very much you taking a little time out of your busy schedules to talk with me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Larry.
Okay. Thank you very much to both of you. I will send you a link when I get this all post-produced, video and audio. Okay.
All right.
Thanks to
All right.
both of you.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye.